In episode 1 we went through the basic landscaping and terrain generation setup to allow us to start creating this virtual sort of Alpine France style fictional world that we're going to create a layout in Transport Fever 2. And today we're going to start setting up the main railway lines for the TGV network that we're going to set up. Now, TGV network will be the fastest high priority route, and it's only going to stop at 4 stations. Now, this seems very simplistic for a map which is huge, Megalomaniac, experimental map size 1 to 5, but there are going to be further regional passenger trains which will exist on a separate layer on top of that, and then some local passenger trains again on top of that, and there will also be an extensive industrial shipping network as well. But we're going to start off with just the TGV lines. So these are going to be quite a self-contained separate system. No other trains are going to run on these lines. We want them as fast as possible, and we want them as clear as possible, and we're going to use timetabling to make sure that there are no hold-ups so that the system runs efficiently. So what we're going to do, we already created flat spaces for City 1, City 2, and what is now City 4, because I've added an idea for another big city somewhere along the route. So we will also need to create a new flat spot for that. But basically the 2 terminal stations at either end are going to have a depot. Now, this depot will actually be a train station that no passengers get on or off at. That's where the trains are going to sit overnight. Now, there's no day or night cycle in Transport Fever, but we're going to simulate the fact that the trains are not going to run for 24 hours. By the end of the day, I want them safely tucked away in their depots, ready to start the day again in the morning. Now, hopefully this will simulate some kind of effect of peak hour, because the trains won't be running in the overnight hours. Hopefully demand is going to build up, so by the time the first trains run in the morning, they're going to be busy. So that's a little experiment that we're going to try on this. So the area that we're looking at here is, if I can load the mini-map up, this is going to be City 1. City 2, we established an area at the sort of center of the map. City 4 is going to be at the far end. Now, City 3, I'm thinking I'm going to use this sort of flat area along the river, and you'll see from the route map that City 2 and City 3 you can't get to with the TGV. They may well have local or regional train connections, but that's going to be at a later stage. We're just focusing on the TGV lines today. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to create the station for C1, City 1, in the area that I've allocated. Now I'm going to do this initially sort of centrally to this space. We may move it later on. So I'm going to go to station building. I'm looking for something like Liège, which I think is quite interesting. Or will I use Liège? No, I'll tell you why I'm not going to use Liège initially. It's because I do need to adapt and tweak the station as we go through this process. So I'm going to start with the basic passenger station. And I'm going to need 2 tracks, high speed, catenary, yes, and I want them at 320 meters because the TGVs that we're going to use will be about 300 meters long. And actually it's a terminal station that I need, so I need to make sure I've got terminal selected. Now you can kind of see the scale of this area now that we've actually placed an object down, and how huge this map is actually going to be. So there's going to be a lot of room in this area for industrial areas, farming areas, and the city itself. So we're going to go ahead and place the station down. And it's a very basic 2-track station at the moment, but this is going to get a lot bigger. And we're going to use our LGV tracks we're definitely going to have catenary on, and we are going to build out a nice straight piece, and I want that about 400 meters, and I'm putting parallel tracks on because I don't want to have to come and create everything twice. So I'm going to create this initial piece, and I've got it wrong. So parallel tracks are working the other way, so that's good to know. So let's refund ourselves. Let's do that again. So it's definitely a straight piece, 400 meters, parallel tracks are on. It's flat because we're at 0. Wonderful. And there is our initial exit out of the station. So this is about a train length. So as the TGV comes out of the station, this is about an entire length of that train. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a sweeping curve. You'll see we're flat because we flattened this whole area, but we know that this is starting to go down, so I want to actually start digging downwards into a cutting, and that's quite a cutting because that's quite a length of track already, and we don't have the ability to make that 0.5. we're going to go down 1, so we're going to go ahead and create that, and we can smooth this out a little later on. So looking back at our diagram, this is just that first bit of track that's coming out of C1. We'll come back and have a look at the depot later on. So this is looking good. This is looking like a nice cutting for our TGV, and we're going to try and make quite a shallow as turn as possible to get around this corner. It can't be too shallow because we've got these huge hills in the way and the river. So unfortunately, we are going to lose a little bit of speed at this point. There's not really a lot we can do at this point apart from making the curve as shallow as possible. So that's not going to cut it. My computer's going to melt down. Well, it looks at all my bridge mods. So I'm going to have to still go down. And this cutting is at the absolute limit now. As soon as you start getting this with the terrain, it means that Transport Fever, the game, was only allowed for embankments to be this big. But we'll try and smooth that out if we can. So you'll see we're going to start getting quite steep at this point. So I'm going to see if I can go down 3 here. And let's see if we can smooth this out. Let's go ahead and do that now. That's it. So that's a bit more reasonable. Not as dramatic as it needs to be. Smooth all of this out. So this is good. This is realistic. We're trying to get down to a point, and we're trying not to do it too urgently and suddenly at the end. So we're still descending, -2. And we're still at full speed. I think about probably we'll do a slight left so that we can swing around. So still no speed restrictions. Let's get that smooth. So this is where we're going to try and make our big turn. And we'll make it as shallow as possible, but there's no way that we're going to keep 320 around that corner, unfortunately. Because we do have to get around here. So again, we'll have a cut-in rather than a tunnel. I think it's just a fact of life that we're going to be at 180, 179 at this point. But trains coming the one direction are going to start slowing down for the main station. And in fact, I don't like what I've got at all there. So I'm going to delete that whole section, because what I don't want is this weird S-curve. We need to delete it all the way back to there, I would suggest, because otherwise you're forever going to be looking at that curve thinking, what on earth was I doing? That's a bit better. So if we can connect these two, that's a bit better. Still a weird curve there though. It's unfortunately being really picky, but this is the whole point. This is an exercise in being anal retentive. If you're really trying to get this game looking at its best. Still not right, is it? I think it's needs to come back to about here. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here, I suppose, is that you can just leave it as it is. But being said, the whole exercise that I'm getting out of this is the construction rather than the operation. If the construction is not right, then that's much better. Smooth that right out. This is going to look incredible once we've got some trees in. Nice super fast TGV, bit of a bend, nothing we can do about that. And we're going to start going on the river. And what I'm going to do first is the main track A on the diagram. So we're not going to go, we're going to go all the way to the end of the map with this route, and we're going to try and keep it at 320 as much as possible. So this is good. Then what do we want to do? Do we going to follow the... No, we're going to have to cross... I think we'll cross the river at this point. So I'm going to want to run some ships eventually. So I'm going to need a nice bridge that's going to allow ships to cross under. So I'm going to actually build this first. Let's see what bridge options we have. One of the nice suspension bridges. I'm going to save these for the TGVs. So that's good. Ships will get under that because we don't have the yellow lines. So ships will easily pass under this. So that's 2. That's good. Sometimes the parallel tracks don't like it with the bridges. Then I think this is going to be too steep. So I think we actually need another bridge on this line. And let's do it slightly different. Let's have this suspension bridge. Again, this is fine because we have green lines, no yellow. Did this work with parallel tracks? It did. Excellent. Going to connect these 2 bridges up. And I'm going to have a basic concrete bridge between the 2. Both there and there. That's probably a bit overkill in terms of columns. So many bridge options. That's better. That's what I'm looking for. So it actually comes to ground at the top there. So in this instance, the parallel tracks didn't work. So we're just going to manually build those along. What am I missing? No, it hasn't worked there either. Sorry, I thought I saw 2 tracks. There's 2 tracks. 2 tracks. Fine. Perfect. You do have to zoom in sometimes if you want to see things properly. Lovely fast bridges. I'm going to connect this back up to this section. I can see, yeah, I want to pull it back to about there. To get the curve working, we'll have parallel tracks again. And we're going to let Transport Fever actually work out the loop here, because it will do a nice smooth loop. It's 320 all the way until, so we're going to get a little slower there. Not really sure, there's a lot I can do about that. So let's go and build. Got our parallel tracks. This is a lovely sweeping fast TGV section up to the bridges. And we're definitely going to need a tunnel at this point. In fact, this is going to be quite a challenging section, so we're going to cross over. What we want to do is try and create a bridge around here. So I'm just going to get as far as here. Let's just check which tunnel we have. What a nice high-speed tunnel. And embankments at that point. So that's fast. That's still fast. Oh, I forgot to turn parallel tracks back on. That's not a problem. So we'll do this manually. I don't like to have too many tunnels because I like to see the trains that are running, but it's a good useful effect to have them pop in and out of scenery. It's quite interesting, quite dramatic. What have I done here? I'm not quite sure what I did there, but I somehow created 3. I think we're going to edit this video somewhat to hide my mistakes. Let's see if I remember. No, I'll tell you what, I'll leave it in because these things happen. I'm not quite sure what I did there, whether I'm just not looking properly again. That's fine. I think that's all okay. Right, so we try and get a bridge over again. So this is going to be City 2. This is going to be quite difficult to get through with the TGV. So this is where we want our bridge. So I'm going to go for the cable stayed bridge. I'm going to turn parallel tracks off because I don't trust it. All green. Ships can get through, I believe. We might just raise it up in the middle. Yeah, if we do that, we reduce some of those yellow boxes. So let's do that. Parallel tracks back on. Oh, and here's a problem again. We have a slow curve to get back. 150 kilometers an hour. This sort of half speed is not good. So what's the minimum? What's the fastest sort of curve that we can do? I'm looking at something that's a little more like this. Well, there's no point doing a TGV track if you're going to run it at 150k. But you actually can't turn. This is the problem. I mean, I'm never actually going to make this turn. Because this is an Alpine area, we're just going to have to accept, in this case, that the train is going to slow down. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll have an airport at both ends, so if people really want to get there quicker, they have that option. And we're just going to have to accept that we're going to have this speed reduction. But that is a huge embankment. I think we'll need a viaduct actually. Yeah, I'm going to viaduct that. 240. Not bad. So parallel tracks didn't work. You know what? I might come back to this later. I'm gonna find an answer to getting this faster curve. I really don't want to slow this train down. It just seems such a shame, but the terrain that we've made, we don't really have a lot of choice. We've got to get around these mountains. So there's not a lot that we can do at this point. And I want to head back basically directly into this area. So we're going to have another bridge. A bridge and a tunnel, in fact. So I'm going to put the bridge roughly around that point. I'm going to try and pick a new type of bridge. Nice box girder. I think we'll be able to get ships through there. Let's connect those two up. Obviously, we're not going to have a suspension bridge all the way across, so we'll get the embankment running. Let's have parallel tracks on. So that's good. We'll come back and sort the terrain out. Running over tunnel through. We're going to try and get down to the ground at this point. Let's just check our tunnel. Let's have tunnel 4 again. And that's fine. Parallel tracks are on. This isn't quite right, is it? I think we need to do something slightly different now. Not quite sure why I created such a huge embankment up there. That's more like it. Yeah, so straight off the bridge into the tunnel. And we're aiming to come into the city here. So we're going to build a station here, and we're going to do again 320, but not a terminal station, a standard path through station. I'm going to have it roughly that orientation to start with. We're going to come back and rebuild this anyway. So I like to reasons that will become obvious. I like to have a bit of a straight section so I can get my crossovers working nicely. And I'm going to let Transport Fever work out how to connect these two pieces. So we'll have an embankment, inevitably a tunnel there because of the big mountain, and we'll pop out. That's all fine. Again, we can come and rebuild if needed. Parallel tracks didn't work again. It's nice when they do. It's not the end of the world. For some reason it just couldn't work it out. What are we colliding with? The amount of troubleshooting you have to do can be quite a task. Quite often when you pull a parallel track through a tunnel, it doesn't like it. Okay. And there is City 2. So that's not a bad route, it's interesting at least. So that'll be first stop. And then the second stop, the TGV. And we're going to continue line A towards City 4. Parallel is working. So I'm not quite sure what lays in store for us. Oh, another river. At least we've got a nice fast section running there. So this could be quite a challenge, but also quite interesting. I want to get across there, and I'm going to try and cut along the edge of the mountains there. So what would that look like in terms of... So it only works when it wants to. But that's fine, we persevere. Let's try this again. So let's get over. Let's do a different sort of bridge here. I'm not worried about ships either because there won't be any ships running this way. That's good. It's paralleled. Excellent. And we are going to have a steep curve. But again, nothing we can do about that. Some steep cut-ins, but we're going to landscape them out. This looks suspiciously like the artificial plateau I created. Again, don't worry about this too much because everything is going to change. Most of this track is going to end up being relayed. I'm just getting it down roughly as a starting point. Inevitably everything is going to end up being tweaked. Just trying to make something that is actually interesting, because we're doing something here for ourselves to sort of have a bit of fun with. So we can have a first tunnel through that. Getting parallel tracks, didn't like that. Suspect it's something to do with the tunnels. So this is cool. So we'll pop out and we'll go to, let's have a stone viaduct. That looks like some kind of Dutch viaduct. Yeah, I'm thinking more traditional type. Something with arches. Ooh. Let's come back to the arch bridge. I think we'll use that on the slower tracks. Let's keep following this along as close as we can. Let's have relatively modern and fast bridges for TGV sections. Modern tunnels. We have to tweaks on the landscape here. Interesting shadows it's creating. That's quite a bug, isn't it? And I think, yeah, we're going to try and, oh, we need to create the other track first. So we're going to try and hug along. So it's going to lose speed because we're in such a dramatic bit of scenery. I imagine TGVs that run through the very hilly Alpine areas are also going to suffer the same problem. So let's see if we can. We're going to hide that with trees, don't worry. That's going to be full of trees. So where are we heading to? Quite a little way to go yet. Just down to City 4 at this end. So I think we're probably going to try and come in this way. So that's relatively straightforward. Let's see if we can follow the river as much as possible. Tunnel in, tunnel out. very weird shadow effects. But again, we're going to hide those with trees. There's going to be lots of trees all over this map. It's looking very bare at the moment, but there is a plan. Why we've got 3 tracks happening? I mean, there will be more tracks along. There's definitely not going to be 2, because we have a whole load of other types of trains and services that are going to run in the same cut-in, same bridges. Just I'm not going to build them yet, that's all. And I'm sorry to say, there's going to be a big steep turn along the river here. It's still going to be the fastest option, because some of the turns that are going to end up being made in the very, very mountainous bits of the map are going to be far, far slower than that. Okay, so relatively straight. We'll tunnel through. At some point you have to stop playing games and just tunnel. Okay, so we know tunnels definitely don't like parallel tracks. The question is, with these, is how quickly the trains can recover the speed with these really annoying corners that we have, because we have quite a lot of the sections are very fast. It's just how quickly the TGVs can recover up to that 320 maximum. We shall see. And quite a steep embankment to get up onto the artificial plateau that we created. Just try and soften the appearance of that. Again, trees are going to work wonders. And we will have another terminal station. Again, probably temporary for now, but it's going to be somewhere there. And it's going to be rebuilt, and all sorts of things are going to change. But the principle is going to be very similar to this. So that is the main line A. It's roughed out. There are problems with it. There are issues. There are bugs. There are things where I'm not too keen on. But to be able to work out our timetabling and our scheduling and how many trains exactly we're going to need, it's essential that we lay something down and we get something running. So this is going to be the first section that we're going to run and we're going to test before we do line C and B. Actually, I'm talking nonsense. Let's do that again. So what we've created here, we've created the station for City 4, and we've created a line which is not that great, but it is a starting point, and there's not too many things that we can do differently, but we're going to tweak it. And this line is running to City C2 station. This is where C2 is going to be, and this line then runs to station C1, where City C1 is going to be. They're going to have nice French names, but we don't know what they are yet. We're going to come to that. So what have we not done though? I said right at the start that we were going to do. Well, we said that we were going to just create a direct line between C4 and C1. So at what point would I cut off this station, C2? At what point would I go direct? Now that I run this, I'm actually going to change the diagram. And that's what I'm going to do in this process. I'm not going to stick rigidly to the diagram. I'm not going to stick rigidly to the terrain. I'm going to let the two adapt to each other. So I'm going to tweak this diagram, and when we come back, I'm going to see how we're going to change it, because I kind of just want to freestyle it a little bit, but I want to keep the diagram to keep a sense of structure to what we're doing. So this is the diagram that we actually have. We just haven't created the depots yet, and the depots and the timetabling and working out the timings and how many trains we need to run just this line we will do in the next video. So I hope that you can join me on that one.